Hi, this is Daniel Patrick Brennan. This is the Wine is Food podcast, and I am joined finally by James Ostergren. Say hello to everybody, James.
Hello, everybody.
It's what? We started talking about this 3 months ago or something before harvest that we were
Yeah,
going to try to get together, but
I think it was more like 4, but yeah.
I popped in to see James and at Crossroads Winery just one day to see if we could catch up, and then harvest hit the fan, and then it's been a newborn and all kinds of busy stuff for you. So we're finally able to catch this before I take off for the States in a couple weeks, or about a week actually. So I'm glad we snuck this in.
Yeah, good stuff.
I ran into James, first met James. I was in Hawke's Bay at a kind of an industry tasting at EIT, and I was with a buddy of mine, Chris Reed, who we interviewed in episode 1 of this podcast, actually. And he knew I was a big Phillies fan, and I always wear my Phils cap in the winery. And
Yes, you should.
And all of a sudden, we see this guy come into the hallway before the tasting with a Phils cap on, and Chris looks at me, "What the hell is that about?" And I said the same thing. I said, "What's going on?" So I approached James, and turns out he's from Long Beach Island, New Jersey. Are you from Long Beach Island?
I am from Long Beach Island. Yeah. I moved around a bit when I was a kid because my dad was in the Army, but most of the time was on LBI.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. We used to, cut a half day from high school and go down and go to the beach. That was sort of our local, 40 minutes away from where I grew up, and shoot down, what is it, 63? 60, what is the road?
72.
72, yeah.
70 to 72.
Yeah,
right
70 to 72, that's right. And so right away I was interested, and I thought, I thought I was the only guy from the Philadelphia area, ended up in Hawke's Bay, and not only from Philly, but somebody from a town like Long Beach Island, which is pretty cool. How the heck did you end up in Hawke's Bay?
Well, my mom's actually from Hawke's Bay. She grew up in Hastings, and
okay, how did she end up in Long Beach Island?
well, like any good Kiwi, she was doing her OE,
Yeah.
and met up with a friend of hers who she'd flattered with when she lived in Australia, when she was traveling through Virginia, and her husband was in the Army, knew my dad. There was an officer's event. He didn't have a date, and they suggested that he bring along my mom, and they hit it right off. And
now you're here.
Yeah, exactly. A couple years later.
So then you came back. I mean, you say some Kiwi phrasing, but pretty much American accent, I think. It's kind of a bit of a mix. I mean, I wouldn't say you have a Philly or Jersey accent at all, but there's certainly...
After I go home, it comes on.
I'm sure it does. Yeah, you listen to a couple Phil's games, and next thing you know, you're right back into it, down by the water,
Yeah. Well,
down the shore. You're going down the shore, you know what I mean?
Down to the shore and get myself a coffee.
Yeah. So how long did you spend in Long Beach Island?
Basically all through my schooling when I was a kid. I went through most of elementary school there, and then through high school I was there. Then I went to Boston for a couple of years, and then in the Army for a couple of years. And that's pretty much what led me here, because when I was in the Army, I didn't mind the job I was doing. I was turning wrenches on a helicopter, which was pretty fun and interesting, but wasn't so into being in the Army. And felt that I could definitely earn some more money doing something else, or at least be a bit happier. So I took off with my brother, and we came down here for 6 months just to sort of see the world and sort of open our horizons and stuff, and of course stay with our family and see our roots. And we made some money by picking grapes, and it was actually Gordon out at Esk Valley that convinced me to do it by telling me not to do it.
Yeah.
He
said, "Don't get involved in this industry."
Yeah, he says it's not all glamorous. You got to work hard, and it's a lot of hours and slave to the land and all that sort of stuff. And
he said, "You're talking to an Army guy. What do you?"
Yeah. Well, little did he know that everything he was saying was actually attracting me to the wine industry. And I came back a couple of years later and started up at EIT and did the course there, and I haven't looked back. I originally thought I was going to go back to the States and work out in California somewhere, but when I left, is like a lot of Kiwis, I realized how good it is here in New Zealand, and
absolutely,
and how exciting the industry is. You know, it's a young industry. We're defining the styles. We're defining what we make and how we make it. It's really exciting and vibrant, and
I couldn't agree more.
And I think some of the most exciting wine in the world right now is coming out of New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a small segment, and that people have taken a little while to realize, but I think it's actually happening.
No, it's well, what's crazy about it is that's basically the same reason why I ended up here, is that I thought, well, I don't want to go to California, but so many people ask me, but it sounds like I came a little later than you. I was a little bit more on the radar, but it's still, I mean, you talk about the, percentage of production for what New Zealand or even Hawke's Bay makes, and the impact that they make in the wine world is pretty well known for such tiny volumes, but just great, interesting wines. So, so what year did you go to EIT then?
I started in 2001.
Okay, so yeah, that was a way. That's definitely early on here, and especially for when things really seem to start to turn the corner in Hawke's Bay. From me tasting the wines and hearing stories, the 2000s is when it really seemed to take it to the next level.
Yeah, I think through the 90s, everyone was starting to put it all together, and I think in the wineries, people really had things sorted out. But it took a little while to get the right varieties and the right sites, and figure out exactly how to grow everything. And I think through the 2000s, that's really come about. Everyone's figured out where to grow what, how to grow it, and
what not to grow,
what not to
and
grow,
where not to grow.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, people are still experimenting. There's lots of really exciting varieties on the horizon, I think, for New Zealand, being a legitimate cool climate.
I think one of the more interesting examples to sort of explain to people how young the area is there's a lot of hype right now about Hawke's Bay Syrah and New Zealand Syrah, but particularly Hawke's Bay Syrah, and it kind of was really getting big when I got here in 08, the very beginning of 08. So the 07s was like a really hot year. People were excited. The 06s had just gotten released, and they were tasting fantastic, and
still tasting.
Yeah, and it was a great year for Syrah. And then when the 07s came out, I was a little bit step back, because I thought, oh no, this is a slightly different style, because it was a really hot, dry year, and it was just a little different. And I forget who I was talking to about it, but it may have been like Hugh or somebody at Vital, but it was somebody pretty established. And we're kind of doing the math, and we're like, well, the last really hot year before that was 98, and there was like no Syrah. It was like what do you call Alan Rimmer and those guys that had
Alan
a little
Rimmer,
bit of had some Syrah.
Mills
but
Reef
like,
had a little bit too.
Yeah, but tiny amounts. So there's like really nothing to go off of for the winemaking to say, well, what do we do when we get these levels and this, the fruit like this? It was like the first time, and that's how it puts it in perspective how young, and still there's not that much Syrah around.
It's very, very tiny.
Like 200 hectares or something in the country.
Exactly. There's very little, and we're lucky enough to where we've got a decent holding of it. We've got 4 vineyards placed across the gravels, and each one gives us very unique characters.
So when you say we, you're talking about Crossroads.
Crossroads Winery, yeah.
So when did you start there?
Started in 2007.
Yeah, and that's kind of a old, fairly well established. When was that place started?
We've been around for about 20 years now.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're at 22 vintages, and it was established by a guy named Malcolm Reeves.
I'd love to get Malcolm on an interview on this. I just think he'd be...
Oh, mate, you'd never get a word in edgewise.
I know.
He'd have a million stories. You need to do about 3 or 4 podcasts.
Yeah, he's like I say he's like Yoda, that guy. You look at his resume, he's done like pretty much everything in food and wine industry, and processing, engineering, anything. The guy's got an...
And he's been incredibly influential, like, because there was only the food tech degree down at Massey for people to go to do anything with winemaking. And he was the head tutor there, and he also had a wine club down there. And a lot of people got their start through his wine club.
Yeah, and now he's like kind of semi-retired from EIT, I just heard, and he's like Sean Connery or something, that dude, you know, he kind of talks and looks like him too. But I really want to interview him, and I probably, we'll have to set aside. Normally these we'll see how we go, but normally 30, 40 minutes or something. That one I think I'll have to do an hour and a half special or something with, 'cause he's a pretty legendary dude. But I think you were telling me when we first talked that you can see him all over the winery, basically at Crossroads, and I know you guys have expanded a little bit since, but
yeah, we've expanded quite a bit. His footprint isn't as big as it used to be, but he used to, because he was the head tutor when I was at EIT, and he used to tell us all these stories about how he managed to do this and do that, and which is really his thing. He really likes to, instead of going out and buying something, he likes to take a bunch of stuff and make something.
Yeah.
And then all the stories sort of came together when I started working there. Because in '07, it was still the same winery that he had.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we only did about 200 tons through there. And it was a really interesting place to work, and really interesting to sort of come full circle from my studies right into the real world.
Yeah, you see peace and stuff. And he was like that when he lectured too. He's like, oh, you can take this thing and make this out of it, and he's teaching about stills and you know, any work you do with him in the winery, he'd be like, let's try something here, you know, and you learn a lot from that guy. So I hope to talk to him soon. But so did he, you know, sort of the wines that have become, like we were just talking about the Talisman before.
Well, Talisman is something that he created, and you know, that's a large reason why he created Crossroads Winery. He wanted to make a blended wine of varietals that weren't necessarily mainstream varieties, or at least didn't have, it wasn't just exclusively mainstream varieties, and to try and create a wine that had good body, had good color, had good tannic weight, a wine that could age, you know, a true icon wine for the region. And I think he's really done it. You know, Talisman is a very unique wine. It's a mystery blend. We don't tell anyone what the blend is. It changes every year. And just to express what we can out of the year.
So wait a minute, you said earlier that's part of your contract. That's the only, what is it, fireable or terminal offense or something?
Yeah, it's the only thing in my contract which calls for me to be fired if I
reveal that.
If I reveal that.
Can you even reveal the varietals in it, not percentage?
No.
So not even like, you just kind of know what's sort of in it. But
I know what's in it.
Yeah. But I'm saying that the people that, like, you go taste it, it doesn't say anything on the bottle.
Doesn't say anything on the bottle.
So that's gotta, you know, because you can have export issues with that, or is it just
no, we're pretty good.
Blend or something like that, or
well, we just call it Talisman.
Yeah,
you know, it's like, you know, everything in Bordeaux isn't a Cab Merlot or a Cab Merlot Franc or whatever. It's just from Bordeaux.
Yeah,
and so it's kind of a similar thing.
You just don't say. I think that's actually the rule, is if you don't say, and if you don't say it's Cabernet Merlot, then you don't have to list the percentages. So you guys just don't say anything at all.
We keep our mouths shut.
That's good. That's good.
You just let the wine do the talking.
There you go. That's really interesting, because I've had that wine one time, and it was awesome. It was an older one at Brookfield's tasting, actually, and it was phenomenal. But it was like kind of a dick move for somebody to bring that to a blind tasting, because even he didn't know what was in it. So it's like, all right, well, cool. It's a red blend from Hawke's Bay, you know. So one of the other things you mentioned, there has been some benefits to the fact that we didn't do this interview 3 or 4 months ago, because slowly I've thought about other things I wanted to ask you, and I've also found out, like you mentioned the other day when we thought about doing this over the weekend, you said, well, the waves will dictate whether when we do this interview, and that seems to make sense. We got a nice rainy day today, so you're not missing much out there.
Well, there were some waves out there today, but I had to work.
Yeah. So Long Beach
Short days.
Long Beach Island is actually the only other place I ever surfed besides New Zealand. And when I say surf, I mean kind of swimming on a surfboard and maybe getting up. And that goes here as well, because I'm not much of a surfer, but I do have fun out there. But
well, it's something I picked up really when I got here to New Zealand. I've dabbled around with it a little bit back home, but there's not really too many waves back in Jersey.
Yeah.
You get a few around September when the hurricanes start battering Florida. But coming here to New Zealand, my mates used to laugh and say I was getting a degree in winemaking and a degree in surfing at the same time.
Yeah.
Because being a student, you have a bit of extra time.
Sure.
And we
random times is what you
exactly. Time to get there when everyone else is at work, and you get the good waves.
Mm-hmm.
And Hawke's Bay is an interesting place to live for that. There's a lot of different waves and a lot of different places, and
yeah, I've heard, and again, I don't know that much about it, but friends of mine who do surf, I had another buddy who was like a surfing winemaker who used to work at Trinity, and kind of heard mixed things, like, Hawke's Bay is like kind of underrated as far as surfing goes, because it's a little bit off the beaten path. Not that surfers won't go for that, but it's just doesn't always appear in all the surf books, and there's some interesting breaks you got to kind of find or whatever. So
yeah, it's a bit more that you got to know where to be at the right time in Hawke's Bay, and the predominant swells we get are southwest swells, and the bay doesn't really allow those in.
No.
So you go up the coast or you go down the coast, and you get much more consistent surf and bigger waves and that sort of stuff. But there's some times when Hawke's Bay really shines. That little break down the road from where I live at Tiawonga.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only place where if you have a massive southerly with howling southerly winds, it's offshore and pumping.
Yeah.
It'd be one of the only places on the whole East Coast. So there are times when Hawke's Bay shines, and when you get a bit of local knowledge, you can definitely find a whole lot of waves.
Yeah, it's
definitely more than Jersey.
Yeah. I don't doubt that. I did a little weekend with some friends up in like Mahia area, and that was
awesome place.
Yeah, that was like the second or third time I had surfed since I was back in like in my 30s, and it was kind of tough learning how to getting surf lessons on like 4-foot swells. You know what I mean? It's like
the surf can pound in there.
Yeah. It was, but just a beautiful area, and there's even just being within Hawke's Bay to be able to shoot up there, say you might know it's coming. You can, what's that, a couple hours to get up there?
A couple hours, and a lot of guys do it.
Yep.
If the swell's going to be good, head up to Mahia. And
so do you now? I know we've had a really late harvest this year, and both of us were working late today actually. Still, and it's July. There's still a lot of work to be done in the winery, but things are starting to settle down a little bit. I know you got the wee one, but are you, as winter time comes, there's still some slower times in winemaking where you can shoot off and do some surfing and keep up with it, or
it tends to be a weekend thing until the days get a bit longer.
Yeah,
because as well as there's still being a lot of work.
Yeah.
Because the mailers are just finishing now, so we're racking all that out of barrel, and we're getting the whites ready for bottling, and then we've got last year's reds to get out of bottle to add a barrel after that, and get those into bottle, and but it's also a big time for marketing for our winemaker Miles Deneen. He heads overseas and does quite a few things, so I'm left in charge of the winery, which definitely increases my workload a little bit, but that's no problem.
Do you guys have permanent cellar hands there, or one or two, or is it basically just you going?
It's just me and Miles.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been a team there since '07. We get a guy in for vintage to work the lab, a guy named Bill Tunnicliffe. He's a fantastic guy, and he's been with us since 2005. He's come in every single vintage, works about 6 to 8 months with us, and then he takes the rest of the year off. Quite a nice way to be.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and we generally get a few cellar hands in for vintage. As the winery's grown, in 2007 we did 200 tons. This last year we did about 800. So this year we had 4 cellar hands that we brought in, but the first couple of years I was there we only had 1.
Yeah.
And we've always had a German in the cellar, which is always quite a cool thing.
Is that
as well.
Something that's kind of come about over the years, or what? Is there a reason?
Yeah, well, it's strangely difficult to get Kiwis in the winery. Always trying.
Yeah.
But in 2005, they had a guy come over from Geisenheim University, and he worked out really, really well. And so they said, next year send over a mate. And then that's kind of continued up until even this year we had a German fellow.
Almost,
and the guys that are in Geisenheim that we've been getting all have family wineries back in Germany, and they kind of grew up on a tractor.
I've heard that school, but I don't remember.
I believe that's the town as well.
In
Germany. I'm not exactly sure.
That's all right. That's cool.
Yeah, but most of the guys we get are based in the Rheinhessen. We had a guy from Pfalz this year, but most of the guys have been from the Rheinhessen, which is a big area. and there are a lot of big vineyards out there. But all these guys are all just from little family wineries, and
Yeah, there's still a lot of that in Europe. So
they're great workers and great guys, and it's been really cool having them in the winery. And now that we got a few more cellar hands and word's gotten out about Crossroads a little bit, I managed to get a few Kiwis in there. We got a Kiwi guy in the winery at the moment, and he's been working out great.
Good.
And so yeah, it's good.
No, you're not the only one to say that. I talked to a lot of the other sort of assistant winemakers and got people who are in charge of hiring staff, and it can be tough to get Kiwis in because either they go overseas and they want the other experience, or I think it's tough to stay in New Zealand year round. There's only so many jobs, and then the other thing is the bulk. So many people want to come here to do harvest that they just get so many more applicants. And I don't know. I guess if you grow up here, you might want to go try the rest of the world for a bit. But I think
Kiwis have happy feet.
Yeah.
I'm a product of that myself.
Yeah. But I agree with you. I like it here a lot. So like coming back to it. Other places you worked in between when you were at EIT? Did you do some internships?
Yeah, I sort of my first year I went up and did a couple of weeks at a really cool winery called Akahu Estate up in Kaitai, and that was fantastic.
Where's Kaitai?
Kaitai is all the way up in Northland. When you head onto 90 Mile Beach, that town's Ahipara. And it was 5 minutes from there.
I was just talking about that area with somebody. I don't even know if it was on this podcast or not, but somebody was talking about 90 Mile Beach and all that. Could have been last week or a couple weeks ago, but anyway.
A beautiful place, great people, a really magical place in New Zealand.
Yeah.
And Monty Knight, the owner of the winery, is a bit of a local legend.
Yeah.
He's got his own radio show, and he owns a Retrovision in town, and all that. And he's a fantastic guy. They took great care of us, and I really, really enjoyed it. And then the next few vintages I worked down at Church Road.
Mm-hmm. Do you work with Chris over there?
I did. My first vintage, he was still in Gisborne, and I worked with a guy who eventually became my boss at Crossroads with Matt Mitchell, and of course Tony, the winemaker there, and then after that, that's when Chris came in, and in my last vintage in 2005, he was pretty much taking the reins then.
Yeah, I really like.
Yeah. Chris is a great guy.
When I first got to Hawke's Bay, sort of poking around in tasting rooms and trying to get my handle on who was making good wine and what styles I liked, I was like okay with Church Road, but since then it's like every year it's gotten better and better, and I just like particularly like the Couve series and some of the reserve stuff's just like these are serious wines at really good value. And we went through there when we were at EIT and saw some of the stuff he does with his Chardonnay, and I just like the guy. I thought it was cool. He's real hands-on, just passionate, and seems like he's kind of been there for the like kind of came up through the whole thing. So
yep.
He just had some interesting things to say and interesting perspective on things, and
because
kind of easy guy to root for. You know what I mean? He's
without doubt,
hard-working dude. You know what I mean? So
and loves it.
Yeah,
he really lives the wine life.
Yeah,
and the whole crew there has been together for quite a while. When I worked my first vintage there in 2002, it was the first or second vintage for a lot of the crew that are still there, and so it was really interesting to see the progression that the winery's taken. Every year they try and step up their game.
They must be doing something good because they're closing other big wineries and starting to make more stuff there offhand. They closed that big Pandora winery.
Yeah, at Corbin's. I think that has something to do with the mothership.
Yeah, I'm sure. But it's like, oh, all right, yeah, okay.
But I'm sure they'll handle it.
Yeah.
And then after that, I did my last vintage with them in 2005, and then I went over and I did a vintage in California at a really, really fantastic winery called Flowers up in in northern Sonoma.
I knew a girl who worked there, two people I worked with, and they do what, Chardonnay and Pinot, right?
Chardonnay and Pinot.
And wait, don't they have like a legendary intern flat that you guys stay in or something?
Oh yeah,
yeah. It was like the sickest.
Oh, it's the greatest thing ever.
It was like 5-star accommodation for interns.
Oh, without a doubt. It was just because they're way out in the middle of nowhere. Mm-hmm. They're literally an hour from the nearest town.
Yeah,
and that's not much of a town, and And so they have a lot of trouble getting Californians in there. And most of the staff is from overseas, and there's really not any accommodation around there. So they get this house. They get the same house every year, and it is just glorious. It's a fantastic place. You know, it's a really nice big house, heaps of rooms. They've got a hot tub and a big deck, and it's an amazing place to be because you're really close to the ocean, but you're at about 1,000 feet elevation, and that's kind of where the fog layer stops.
Yep.
Because the ocean there is about freezing all year round, and they get fog all the way up to about 1,000 feet. So all the vineyards are just on the little hilltops all around, and it's all redwood forests, and it's just really stunning.
So
it's a beautiful part of the world.
Northern California.
It is just south of the border with Mendocino.
Okay.
So it's way up there.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's a stunning place to be, stunning place to grow Pinot and Chardonnay. They make fantastic wine there.
I've only heard good things, and I've never had the wines. I've looked at the website when after these two girls I know that worked there were talking about it, and they even said, but I think it was so far from everything that I was like, that's
the one thing.
Yeah,
they do take care of you really well to make up for that. You know, they sent us home with wine all the time. They had a chef that cooked for harvest, and there was always heaps of food to bring home.
Yeah, that's another thing I heard was like, you eat well, you drank well, they really took care of you. I was like, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it's a pretty neat place. There. When I was there, the winemaker was a guy named Ross Cobb too, and he's a fantastic guy. He taught me a lot about how to be a winemaker with style.
Yeah, good.
The guy didn't roll anywhere without a case of wine in his trunk.
Yeah. Well, that's what's expected of us. You know what I mean? You gotta roll deep. You know.
Exactly. And we tasted a lot of Pinot, which isn't easy to do on a student's budget. No. So I was really lucky to go there, and I had a great vintage. I've been back to see them, and you know, they were welcomed me back with open arms. I even got to stay in what they call it the crush pad, the intern house.
Yep.
And so I on the way back, I came back and I stopped in Hunter Valley and did a vintage there at a winery, well, not a little, but a winery called First Creek, and worked with a fantastic winemaker named Jim Chatto. He's he does his own thing. He's got his own wines, and he's the winemaker. I believe he's still the winemaker for Pepperjack Wines.
Okay. Yeah,
and he's making a name for himself as a wine judge as well. But he was a great guy, knew a lot about winemaking. Really was open with us and really taught me the Aussie style and sort of why they do what they do. And you know, the Hunter Valley is not the easiest place to make wine, but he managed to make some pretty nice wine out of there.
And you liked Australia though? Otherwise, living there and doing.
It was bloody hot.
Yeah.
Man, it was hot.
Yeah.
It was like 40 degrees by lunch by Smoko every day.
Yeah.
And it got up to 50 degrees twice when we were there. It was just ridiculous.
So that's for the Americans listening back home. That's 50 degrees is like 120.
No, it's about 120. Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. 40 is about 100. I think
40 is like 102 or 103. I think. Yeah.
Close to that.
So
feels like 110.
So
it was interesting.
Big Shiraz and big bold reds and
and some surprising whites. They make really interesting Vidello over in the Hunter.
Yeah, actually.
It doesn't get
it's
a
like
lot
a real
of press.
Dry, crisp kind of style. It'd be like
but
maybe
real
the
tasty.
difference between because some of the Verdelho I've had here is like more like what Pinot Gris as the Pinot Grigio would be like, and it's more of like a Italian Pinot Grigio in the sense of crisp, dry sort of style.
That's definitely what they're doing over there.
Yeah, I've never had
and
it.
It's just quite fruity and it works really well. It's quite a nice wine.
Sounds like a good food wine.
Yeah, but after that, I headed down to work with another brilliant winemaker named Matt Dicey down at Mount Difficulty in Central Otago.
Oh yeah, I was just there last week. I did a tasting there, and I'm working with Desert Heart Wines right down. Keep going down Felton Road. They're just a vineyard there, but they have their own brand, and we're selling their stuff in the States now. But I did a tasting at Mount Difficulty, and you should go visit again. They just redid their restaurant and tasting room, and apparently they got this. I don't know if they started. The winery's got they're getting all this eco praise because the roof of the winery is like a garden.
Oh wow!
It's like built into the hill, and it's got like plants and everything growing off the roof. So
Interesting. I'll
Yeah,
have to go
it's,
check it
it's
out.
pretty
Yeah.
cool. I was like, oh.
I imagine everything's done really intelligently. Matt's a really smart guy and really thinks about everything that they do there. And it was definitely one of the best setups of any winery I've ever worked at. And
It's pretty awesome down in Otago, man. It's just like
yeah, in 2006 when I was there, it was a great year. Interesting harvest. The berries were really big. I remember
giant fruit set.
Robin Dicey, Matt's dad, was bringing in the fruit. And, you know, he said in his thick South African accent that they were the ugliest grapes he'd ever seen. You know, but the wines were fantastic. You know, the wines. I mean, they're proving to they're just starting to really open up now, and they're just really nice.
Otago's sort of fascinating area and something I'm trying to learn more about, and overall trying to learn more about Pinot, because we're making some every year and from Martinborough, but Otago's just weird, man. It's like, you know, the like Desert Heart, for example, is like set between these two hills. They get no frost, yet you'd go, how? You know, you see snow off on the hills, you know, late summer, and it's like, and or all summer, but they get 14 and a half hours of sunshine because it's just the way the sun is down there, and the sun is so strong, and
it's a desert.
Yeah, and it's so dry. It's like
the only thing that grows is time.
Yeah, it looked like you were in Colorado or something, and it's just a strange area. But and it reflects in the wines. When you smell the wines, you're just like, what the hell? This is so crazy, and it's
they're distinctive.
It's the extremes, yeah, they're very distinctive, and
got great fruit purity, and they've also got like a really nice minerality to them, and they've really got a sense of place, which I think is really important with Pinot.
Absolutely.
Pinot is one of those wines that really reflects everything that's come about in making the wine. You know, how it's grown, how it's made. You know, a lot of winemakers just like to call it unforgiving. Yeah. But you know, anything you do to it reflects in the wine, so it makes it a bit more interesting. I think.
Even just going back and tasting, like after that trip, I went down there and we tasted all their wines. I tasted some Mount Difficulty wines and some Felton Road wines, and trying to get a perspective of the region, which Bannockburn is that region there, which, you know, I'd say there's half a dozen great wineries all there, and, you know, there's a couple other ones throughout.
Oh, without a doubt.
But a lot of them are in Bannockburn, and it's, you're just like, I have questions that come back, and I'm now like, by the way, did you press straight to barrel? Because I'm trying to, you know, it's, and it's such a unique, the Pinots down there are just.
But the different little areas are quite interesting too. You know, you get into Gibson Valley, and it doesn't quite seem to get as much as the praise of Bannockburn, but those wines are very interesting and aged and very well.
Again, so young, we don't even know what, you know, it's gonna.
Because it's a bit colder through there, and my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, was working at a fantastic winery called Peregrine.
Sure.
And they make top-notch wine down there. Absolutely. And they're right in the middle of the Gibson Valley. And the wind howls through there, and she would always talk about how cold it was. And she took this incredible picture where there's a few barrels on racks on the crush pad, and they've got snow on them, and it's the middle of harvest.
Yeah, it's a little bit different, you know. We complain a little bit when it rains in Hawke's Bay. It's like, yeah, you see people pruning and, you know, snow and everything like that. It's like, I was glad to catch the sort of very beginning of winter there. It was gorgeous and pristine and very quiet and tranquil down there, but not so. I mean, it was 0 when we landed. You know, it was freezing when the plane landed and everything, and but it can be quite barren and cold and everything. I think I mean, it seems like it gets more hot down there in the summertime than it does.
It does. It gets quite hot in the summer.
It's crazy. So
they've got the extremes, you know. It gets really hot and gets really cold. But it's those fringe areas where Pinot does well.
Yeah.
You know? Chardonnay too.
Yeah. They're actually some of the Chardonnays I've had around there were some of the best. And I've probably said this on this podcast before, and I'll say it in tastings back in the States a lot, that I think Chardonnay throughout New Zealand is just not only underrated, but just varies from You talked about up in Northland. They probably made Chardonnay up there.
Without a doubt, Monty was well known for his Chardonnay.
All the way down to Otago, and you go through Marlborough Chardonnay and Canterbury and Martinborough and Hawke's Bay and
the
all
best
the way up
is in
through,
Hawke's Bay.
Yeah, all the way up to Kumi River and everything. I agree. I mean, I think I love the wines overall from Hawke's Bay more than anything.
Well, Chardonnay was one of the varieties that really grabbed me when I first came over here. I wasn't drinking very expensive wine back in the States before I got into the whole wine thing, and some of the Chardonnays I had, didn't have the vibrancy and the purity of fruit and everything that you get from the Chardonnays here in New Zealand. And when I first started tasting them here, I was like, "Wow!
Yeah,
I didn't think I really liked white wine."
Yeah, it redefines it, is what and you can pull out, like we said, $15 ones, $12 ones here that are just, you're like, what the, and it. I think they always say, "Oh, it's a winemaker Chardonnay," and it can be a little more subtle, and they add oak, but like you can do an unoaked one here, and they're just brilliant fruit on it. And it's, again, the young soils here in New Zealand and things like that.
And that's something, too, where as we've learned how to deal with the fruit and how to maximize the fruit out of the vineyard, that we're starting to get Chardonnay. Well, we've been getting Chardonnays for the past probably about 10 years that really age well.
Yeah.
And, you're starting to really get into the classic Burgundian style with a lot of the wines. And, as you can go through Burgundy and you have your different regions and you have your different styles of Chardonnay, I really think that you're getting the same sort of thing here in New Zealand. You can go all around in like Hawke's Bay, you get big stone fruit and leading with the fruit, and so you can hit it with a decent amount of oak and balance it out. And then you get down in Marlborough where the Chardonnay is a bit leaner and more elegant, so it's calls for a bit more of a gentle touch. And then you go up in Gisborne where you get really strong fruity wines, and you've got everything in between. And for someone who loves Chardonnay, New Zealand should be on their radar.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem to get a lot of press. I don't know why, because I think it's one of the best wines in New Zealand.
I think part of it is that and I always said that they'll have a tough time. They'll always have a tough time exporting it, because everybody makes Chardonnay in the whole world, and again, with that fraction of the industry, that tiny bit that New Zealand produces, for them to make an impact, it took Sauvignon Blanc, which is just so out there and so bright and so unique and everything. And now Pinot seems to be the red that's, I always say, Sav put him on the map. Pinot is keeping us there. And
Syrah will hopefully bring us a bottle
price.
Yeah,
I think Syrah is kind of something else that, but it's going to take some more planting of it. But I've already got some writers and folks back in the States, and educators and people that are real into wine that are really wanting some New Zealand Syrah. So hopefully it starts with them and goes to.
Well, we've gotten some good press from the States for our Syrah, and but the UK at the moment is where we're getting a lot of
they seem to
press.
be onto it.
It's like the big
New
thing
Zealand
over there now.
Yeah, so that's great. And I don't want to forget to mention. You just reminded me that Gisborne. You said something. We were talking about Gisborne earlier. You said that was your favorite place in the world, or something. Or
It's definitely my favorite place in the world.
So why is that? I mean, obviously there's some good surf breaks up there. But,
well, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag too much, but there is some good surf up there.
Yeah.
And it's,
don't worry, nobody's listening anyway.
It's a great town. I grew up on the beach. I grew up in a little town. Gisborne's kind of like that little town on a bigger scale. The isolation that Gisborne has, I really love. A lot of people say the problem is it takes 3 hours to drive there, but I think that's the benefit. That's the beauty of the place. Sure. It's an incredibly beautiful place to be. You're never far from the beach. I really think the wines are quite underrated. I think there are some producers up there that are making some really fantastic wines, especially your Chardonnay, Viognier, even Pinot Gris from up there. And you got everything from the big boys down to small organics. You got Milton, who's leading the charge for their organic wine there. And
those wines are amazing.
Yeah, and it's a tough place to be organic.
sweaty up there.
Yeah, it can rain a little bit. You know,
Yeah,
you get
yeah.
some easterly systems that come in during vintage time. But it's a place where they've been growing grapes there for quite a while, and I think there are quite a number of growers that really have their finger on the pulse and know what's going on. I've even had a few pretty nice Merlots from there.
Yeah, no, I've had some good Merlot.
But the
there.
people are great. The lifestyle is great. You know, you're right on the beach, and that's me to a T.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right. Well, I think.
I just couldn't get a job there. I tried.
Yeah.
I lived up there for about 6 months, and I spent a season pruning, and
Yeah.
my wife really couldn't find work up there either. So we found jobs down here in Hawke's Bay, and we've left it for now. But you know, maybe in a few years we'll get up there.
Cool.
I'm hoping my boy turns into a surfer, so I'll have to bring him up there.
Do some champion surfing up there.
Exactly.
Well, hopefully next time we talk to you, you're still in Hawke's Bay, but you know we'll be sooner than a few years. Basically, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't think I'll be going for a while. You know, the grandparents live in Hawke's Bay, and it's quite nice having them just down the road. And my wife loves it here. She grew up here.
Yeah.
And she's a Hawke's Bay girl.
It's a pretty awesome area.
Yeah, and it is a great place to be. You know, I live in Hamoana, which is a pretty beachy community.
Yeah, and you can get a wee bit of culture here, and some of the arts, and some of the good. It's a great food area and all that. So.
Yeah.
But again, I don't want to let the cat out of the bag too much. You know?
Exactly. I don't want to tell people too much.
Well, cool, man. I think we're gonna leave it there. That's I think I said we do tend to do 30 minutes or so, and we're over 40. So how fast did that go?
Yeah, that was pretty easy.
Yeah. So. But yeah, man, it sounds like we could talk for a while about some more things. We'll have to check in with you next year when I get back from California, and we'll see how the wines are tasting and how the boy is doing, and we'll go from there. Thanks for doing this.
That sounds great. No problem.
I'll put up. I have like a little website. I'll put up the Crossroads Winery website, Facebook page, and a thanks to James Ostergren.
Well, thanks for having me, mate. It was quite fun.
Cheers.